like someone who doesn't even take any corporate PAC money, someone who is believes in things, so some pretty solid platforms. I'm going to do the classic. I'm going to do the classic kind of situation that I always like to do. Go to the website. About Beto, issues. Let's find the issues. How does he stand on the issues? He's a pretty progressive guy from what I understand. I do know he takes no corporate PAC money, which is it's a very good thing. Government accountability. He's for getting money out of politics. Term limits. He's committed to only serving 2 terms if elected to the U.S. Senate. He introduced the No Pact Act, which prevent any elected official from accepting PAC contributions. Any gerrymandering where members of Congress choose their voters instead of the other way around has to end. He also is for gun safety. He said require background checks, stop selling weapons of war on the streets, opposing concealed carry reciprocity, which is pretty cool. So he's a very progressive fellow. I'd be happy to have him in the Senate. Much better. I'd be happy to have any Democrat other than Ted Cruz. He's so satisfying to see that guy who was supposedly started the movement by 2014. Now that he's out by 2018 would be incredible. So, you could probably get a lot of Republicans here to the side because Ted Cruz has been incredibly annoying. I don't know. If you are in a district or if you're in a state where Ted Cruz is representing you, you just want to kill yourself. I don't mean to make a suicide joke there, but how depressing is that? You got Ted Cruz. Any Republican in Texas would be really saddened up, but someone Ted Cruz. Ugh. Yeah. Unsurprisingly, younger, non-white voters favor O'Rourke over Cruz by a pretty large margin. Like many polls, this data only includes landlines, so respondents probably skew older. Black voters are particularly strong for O'Rourke, with 82% supporting him and 10% supporting Cruz. Hispanic voters supported O'Rourke over Cruz by 11 points, which seems a little slight, considering that Cruz would definitely vote with Trump on pretty much and all the Republicans on any horrific immigration bill that they choose to put in there. But O'Rourke has surprised political analysts during his campaign by raising large amounts of money, mainly from small individual donations. His platforms include ending public funds for private schools, expanding Medicaid, creating a public health care option, Medicare for all, do it. There is a good chance that we could get Beto over to Medicare for all. If Bernie comes up to him and say, Beto, we should vote for Medicare for all. It's coming up as a vote soon. Will you be a reliable Democratic vote? He just seems, based on a brief, relatively cursory look, he seems like a guy who would probably vote with a broad Democratic coalition for Medicare for all. But we can hope that'll be the case. But yeah, gun control, ending private funds, very good stuff. So best of luck to Beto O'Rourke as he tries to push that blobfish Ted Cruz squelching away from his Texas Senate seat. That would be a lot of fun. All right, now we turn to Benny Arthur Johnson. He's a Daily Caller reporter at large who's best known as a plagiarist. If you don't know, he worked at BuzzFeed formerly. He's a viral politics editor at BuzzFeed. After finding 40 instances of plagiarism, BuzzFeed's editor Ben Smith announced Friday evening. He said that the plagiarism is a breach of our fundamental responsibility, and the editors are in the process of attaching an editor's note to any instance of plagiarism. So he pretty much embarrassed the whole entire. He sullied all the names. He sullied all the good work that people were doing at BuzzFeed by putting a stench, really essential plagiarism, next to any kind of possibility of it's. you really like any like thing now. If you work at a place like BuzzFeed, like it's a place that a lot of people read. I mean, you got to hold yourself to really a higher standard there, which is pretty disappointing. So we plagiarized a lot at BuzzFeed, 40 times. So he took a deep breath Tuesday evening and decided to come out with a heavy heart. He posted a full-tilted racist diatribe about the man charged with murdering Iowa college student Molly Tibbetts. So yeah, if you don't know, Molly Tibbetts it's been a big situation. It's been kind of it's been a heartbreaking case, just a typical sad case. Girl goes missing jogging in Iowa. She was running on a country road, and it turns out she was murdered by a brown person. Fox News perks up. What? A brown person? He was an illegal immigrant. Oh my gosh, we have the story of a century. And for Benny Arthur Johnson, it was the same thing here. It was the same exact situation at this. It was he took the Fox News narrative and sprinted with it. He didn't just run with it; he sprinted with it. Although her body has not been formally identified, the police said they believe the body was found hidden in the corn stalks yesterday was hers, drawing a month-long search to a close. Very, very sad. Obviously, we all have the most incredible sympathies and condolences to the Tibbetts family there. But it's very sad to see, and so given a lot of credit to the Tibbetts family, who come out and said, enough. No, please. Do not make my daughter's or my niece's death into a racist, anti-illegal immigrant thing, which would have been very disappointing. So the story is tragic enough. Young woman's life cut off in its prime, but you can see where it goes next. And another panic about the suspect's undocumented status because Donald Trump started in on it last night, and he already went politicians, Republicans, anywhere blaming the lax immigration laws for Benny's fate. So, Molly's fate. So here's Benny. He goes, we're going to go to some of this stuff. We're going to continue to go through here. So Molly went for a run on one of those sleepy Iowa farm roads I grew up on. She was abducted, murdered, and had her body dumped in a ditch by a third-world monster who should never have been within 1,000 miles of Molly, Johnson wrote on Facebook and Instagram with a side-by-side photo of a beaming Tibbetts in Rivera's mugshot. He continued, this human garbage has spent 6 years in our country's being shielded, protected, and humanized at every turn by the policies of national Democrats. This bastard crossed our borders illegally, and even though he does not share our culture, worldview, and our value system, he was allowed to stay long enough to murder an American in the prime of her life and leave her body in the dirt for 34 days. How is it possible that the subhuman horror of the third world can find its way into the peaceful farming communities of my upbringing? It bears repeating. Democrats and open border advocates have the blood of Molly Tibbetts on their hands. Wow. The disgraceful policies of sanctuary cities, catch-and-release, and open borders have led to American bloodshed. Wow. So some of the quotes in there can be passed off as, oh, this is a murderer. And obviously I agree, this person is a monster, an awful person. This single individual is a monster and deserves prison for the rest of his life. There's no doubt about that. There's no denying that. And no one is denying that. Benny Johnson. But some of these quotes, some subhuman horror of the third world, immigrants couldn't possibly share our culture or value system. Wow. Yeah. So the person who wrote this, who wrote the story up, Catherine Kruger for Splinter, said she reached out to Daily Caller editor-in-chief Jeffrey Ingersoll for a comment on Johnson's remarks, in which she pointed out that characterizing people as subhuman wouldn't be out of place in a white supremacist site like Stormfront. He accused Catherine of calling Johnson a Nazi. He says, and she will apparently update this. A post, and it is updated. It is updated as of 11:50 a.m. Ingersoll followed up with a longer statement. Mexico might be the Afghanistan of North America, but it isn't third world. It certainly behaves like it is, but technically the statement is inaccurate. Benny's rhetoric is bombastic and emotionally charged at worst. While it contains a geopolitical inaccuracy, it's absent of a racial element. Monster is indisputable at this point, and probably not the focus of your article, I assume. I'm guessing you've already made your judgment, but I take hyper-offended internet mobs' interpretation of things with a grain of salt. I'm also guessing your headline will probably contain the word racist in quotes and be pegged to some rando or perennially offended blue check mark. I think the bar should be higher than the presence of the accusation. Oh my gosh! Don't call my rhetoric racist, even though he says he calls all immigrants, all Mexicans subhuman. Like that's pretty much what it meant there. Yeah. Yeah. I will be looking into this here in the future, and it's just he's like Molly Tibbetts was an Iowan. She went for the Hawkeyes. She went to University of Iowa, and I mean it's very sad with the way you're playing off one person's actions, and like would you be doing this like if English people immigrated to our country and an English person murdered her and did the same thing? Like no, it's because of one thing. It's because they're from south of the border. Like, that's the only reason why this post was made. It's the only reason why the vitriol from this post is present. It's the only reason why this post is even there. It's the only reason Benny Johnson chooses to do this is because the murderer is a Mexican. Like, there's no other reason. It's as simple as that. Yeah, so, yeah, even if Rivera, Catherine Kruger of Smutter writes, committed the crime he's accused of, it doesn't particularly matter whether that he was undocumented. Besides, immigrants to the U.S. commit fewer crimes, not more, than native-born Americans by percentage. That's a fact. It doesn't particularly matter that he was working in Iowa for a prominent Republican who was once in the running to be Trump's agricultural secretary. Facts matter here. Facts don't care about your feelings. Although you can imagine if the political tables were turned and this happened in 2010, it would matter a great deal to the same people. Weaponizing these details is cravenly political. Is politicizing the dead, a charge that conservatives constantly level at liberals in the wake of tragedy. And, I mean, I'll just pretend to be Fox News here for a second. It's so sad today that the left is the right is politicizing this horrible tragedy, Molly Tibbetts' death by the hands of their vile racist agenda. Oh, so sad. Like, politicizing the tragedy is something the right does all the time. All the time. Like, the left does it too. And, like, I'm against it. I'm against not politicizing. Like, I mean, I wouldn't call it politicizing a tragedy, but I'm for having a discussion on how we can avoid the tragedy, not 2 weeks after the tragedy happens, like the minute after the tragedy happens, because we can't have this happen again. It's a horrible thing. It's just that simple. All right. Yeah, we're going to move on now as Betsy DeVos, as if it wasn't horrifying enough when President Trump insisted that the solution to school shootings was to put more guns in classrooms. A new report on Thursday said the Department of Education is now considering using federal funds to finance their idea. According to the New York Times, Education Secretary Betsy DeVos is looking to allow schools to use the Student Support and Academic Enrichment Grants as part of the $1 billion Every Student Succeeds Act of 2015 to buy firearms. On the grant homepage, the Department of Education explains that the money is used to, quote, improve students' academic achievement by increasing the capacity of states, local education agencies, schools, and local communities to provide all students with a well-rounded education, improve schools' conditions for student learning, and improve the use of technology in order to improve the academic achievement and digital literacy for all students. So, yeah, how about protect the students? I think that's probably what they're going to try and put in there. So, notably, the Times explained the grant program contains no language that specifically bars it from being applied towards instruments of death. Citing people familiar with the department's thinking, the Times says the DOE would justify gun purchases by claiming it would be part of the grant's program mandate to improve school conditions. This is hardly the first time DeVos has come down hard on the position of, hey,